A tragic loss has shaken Cedar City. 17-year-old Kaylee Dutton was chased down and shot to death while driving home with her friends on Friday night.
The heartbreaking incident has left family, friends, and the community devastated. Kaylee Dutton was simply driving home with two friends when they were targeted in a shocking act of violence.
Tonight, we have a major update in the tragic killing of a 17-year-old girl in Cedar City. Police now identifying the suspects and sharing what led up to the shooting of Kaylee Dutton. The Iron County Sheriff says this all started because Hess, Watucky, and Galloway say that they thought they were being stalked in their apartment complex.
Welcome back to Monsters Among Us. Today, we dive into a case that is as disturbing as it is heartbreaking. A case where paranoia, mistaken identity, and reckless violence converged in the most devastating way imaginable. This is the story of Kaylee Dutton, 17 years old, full of promise and potential, who unknowingly drove straight into the crosshairs of four dangerous men and never returned home. It was a cold Friday night in Cedar City, Utah, the kind of night where the quiet streets seemed to hold their breath. The air was crisp, still, as if the world itself knew something terrible was about to unfold. Kaylee, just another teenager on the road, had no way of knowing that her journey would take her into the very heart of a nightmare. What started as a typical evening, heading home, listening to music, just a few miles from safety, would soon spiral into a horror she couldn't escape. This is the tragic, senseless story of how one innocent mistake, being in the wrong place at the wrong time and in the wrong vehicle, would set off a chain of events that ended in unthinkable violence. Kaylee wasn't just another teenager. She was a force, someone who moved through life with purpose, her every step driven by a sense of determination that few could match. Her parents speak of her as someone with an unwavering spirit, adventurous, kind-hearted, and above all, fiercely independent. By the time she was 3, she was already riding dirt bikes, the roar of the engine and the dust of Utah's back roads symbolizing the freedom she craved. From a young age, Kaylee refused to be defined by the limits others might set for her. It was no surprise when she graduated high school a full year early, not because she had to, but because she wanted to prove that she could. To prove she was capable of more than what most people expected. Her dreams were big. She had always felt a pull toward the medical field, driven by a deep, natural instinct to help others. But what her friends remember most about her is how she made everyone feel welcome, how she could lift your spirits even when it seemed impossible. Kaylee had everything to look forward to, a future full of promise, plans, and endless possibilities. But all of that would be ripped away in an instant because on the night of January 17th, 2025, everything changed. That evening, Kaylee was restless. She left her home in search of something, anything to do. It wasn't long before she met up with a friend, an 18-year-old whose name has been kept private, and the two of them found themselves at an apartment complex in Cedar City, about an hour away from the Utah-Arizona border. They hung out, talking, laughing, oblivious to the dark turn the night was about to take. As the hours slipped away, it was time to go. At around 11 p.m., Kaylee and her friend climbed into her red pickup truck, ready to head home. The drive was supposed to be routine, just another late-night trip down the quiet roads of Utah. But something in the air felt off. It started when a black truck appeared behind them, tailing too closely. Kaylee glanced in her rearview mirror. The headlights of the truck gleamed like an aggressive warning. The high beams flashed, an unmistakable threat. Her grip on the wheel tightened. What was going on? Was this just a coincidence, or was it something worse? She pressed on, trying to ignore the unease that crept into her chest. But the black truck stayed with her, its presence like a shadow she couldn't escape. 6 miles of winding road passed, and the truck remained on her tail, never slowing, never backing off. Kaylee wasn't the type to panic. She'd faced tough situations before, but this was different. The air in the truck grew thick with tension. Her friend, sitting next to her, could feel it too. The fear was palpable. They were alone, isolated, and the darkness seemed to press in around them. Then, it happened. The black truck surged forward, pulling alongside them. A window rolled down, and without warning, the gunfire erupted. The world seemed to shatter in that instant. Bullets tore through the night, each one striking with brutal force. Kaylee had no time to process what was happening, no time to escape. She was hit 12 times. The impact sent her truck swerving out of control until it slammed violently into a vinyl fence. Her friend, bleeding from a gunshot wound to her leg, was the only one left conscious. Trembling, in a panic, she fumbled for her phone, her hands slick with fear and blood, and dialed 911. The call came in at 10:32 p.m. The clock was ticking. First responders rushed to the scene, arriving at 10:51 p.m., their sirens cutting through the night. Kaylee was still breathing when they found her, but it was too late. They tried to save her, tried to fight against the ticking clock, but she was slipping away. By the time they reached Cedar City Hospital, Kaylee was gone. By the time morning broke, law enforcement was already on the hunt. Kaylee's friend, despite the trauma of the night, was determined to help. Her injuries didn't stop her from providing crucial details about the black truck, the vehicle that had turned their world into a nightmare. Her words would be the first thread in unraveling the mystery, but it wasn't just her testimony that pushed the investigation forward. Surveillance footage, captured along the dark roads they had traveled, revealed key movements of the suspects that night. The pieces began to fall into place. Investigators followed the trail, one step closer to the men who had stolen Kaylee's life. And then, they found them. Inside the suspect's home, officers discovered something far more chilling than they ever expected. Multiple firearms, loaded, ready, and ammunition that matched the bullets used to kill Kaylee. But there was something else, something far more sinister. Tucked away, deliberately hidden, was a single shell casing. One, as if it had been left behind, perhaps carelessly, or maybe, just maybe, intended to be hidden, discarded, never found. But that wasn't the worst of it. What followed was a collection of items that spoke volumes: marijuana vapes, pipes, signs of reckless disregard for the law, for life. These weren't just men on a bad path. They were predators, dangerous, unhinged. And now, their freedom was slipping away. They were caught. 4 men were arrested. Each one played a distinct role in the crime that took Kaylee's life, and each of them carried a piece of the blood-stained puzzle. Michael Edward Huckey, 23, the driver of the black truck, the one who set the deadly chase in motion. Ethan Andrew Galloway, 23, the gunman, the one who pulled the trigger and fired the fatal shots that shattered Kaylee's world. Alri Philippe, 21, an accomplice who knew about the crime but did nothing to stop it, complicit in the horror. Matthew Sorber Petrie, 22, the man who provided the weapon, fully aware of its deadly purpose. Michael and Ethan were charged with murder, 12 counts of discharging a firearm, obstruction of justice, possession of a controlled substance, and possession of a dangerous weapon by a restricted person. As for Matthew and Alri, though they hadn't pulled the trigger, they too faced serious charges for their roles in covering up the crime, in aiding and abetting the cold-blooded act. When the 2 men were finally questioned, they didn't deny their actions. In fact, they admitted to everything. Their story was chilling in its simplicity. In the days leading up to that fateful night, Michael and Ethan had seen a red pickup truck near their home. It wasn't a truck they recognized, but in their minds, something was wrong. They convinced themselves that they were being followed, that they were being stalked by some unseen enemy. And then, that night, they saw Kaylee's truck, the same truck, and the fear they had built up in their minds twisted into something darker. Without so much as a second thought, without confirming who she was or questioning their own paranoia, they chased her down. Kaylee an innocent, vibrant girl, was nothing more than a target in their deluded minds. They killed her because of a car. Ethan, perhaps attempting to show a flicker of remorse, wrote a note of apology to Kaylee's family, his words hollow, empty. But the reality was this: an apology could never erase the weight of what they had done. It couldn't bring Kaylee back. Now, as the legal process slowly unfolds, Kaylee's family is left to fight for justice, justice that will never undo the devastation they've endured. The 4 men responsible face life behind bars, but for Kaylee's loved ones, the pain will never truly fade. Her mother, haunted by the unbearable weight of waking up each day to a world without her daughter, speaks of the silence that now fills their home. Her siblings, caught in a whirlwind of grief, are left asking one question over and over: why? And her friends, those who saw her as a light, someone full of life, struggle to comprehend how someone like Kaylee could be taken so senselessly, so violently.
We get out there and they tell us that she's in the ambulance, and I just ran up to the ambulance and they came out and they said that they were doing everything they could and Lifeline was on their way. And my heart just sank. She's my baby. She's been my baby since I was 15 years old. Our whole life was it's just gone. It's not the same. No one can fill her shoes.
Out there, all I could think is I could just hold her mom, I just hold her so tight because I just prayed that she'd pull through, even though he said it didn't look good. I prayed. I'm like, she's tough. She's a tough kid. She'll pull through.
Kaylee Dutton was not a stalker. She was not a threat. She was simply a young girl driving home after a night out. This was not some tragic accident. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. This was an act of violence, driven by nothing more than paranoia and reckless disregard for life. And now, an entire community is left to pick up the pieces, struggling to grasp the chilling reality that a life full of promise and potential can be snuffed out so easily. Kaylee Dutton's story serves as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of impulsive, unprovoked violence. It reminds us that life is fragile, that it can be stolen in the blink of an eye for reasons that make no sense at all. And so, the story of Kaylee Dutton becomes another tragic chapter in a world where innocence is too often lost. A story that leaves us questioning how far paranoia, fear, and violence can stretch before they take everything in their path. As always, thank you for watching. If you found this story as heartbreaking as I did, please leave a like, share, and subscribe for more stories that need to be told. And, as always, stay safe out there. You never know who or what you might encounter.